We are now live. We are live. Jesse was just saying something to me backstage and I didn't hear it. So, Jesse, we lost him. We lost a lot of good men out there and we haven't even begun yet.
Yep.
Okay. Well, he's actually, it's showing that he's on stage, which is weird.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll find his way back.
Guys, we're off to a good start today. Welcome to the last webinar of February 2025. We are talking about lead Aggs today. It's a heated topic. We know that maybe some of you have come on here simply to tell us how much you hate lead aggregators, and that's fine. This is a safe place. But we're going to be talking about lead aggregators today. As you know, Jesse, it's great to have you back.
My connection seems so all of a sudden.
But. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we're talking about lead Aggs today. I've got an icebreaker question. I want to give you guys some time to come in. So let's just take a minute here. And there's two questions here. One of them is easier than the other. Okay, I'm going to go with this one. We did this one a couple weeks ago, but it's still fun and I like doing it. And I want to know which Mario Kart character you would be or were when you played.
Baby Mario.
Baby Mario?
Hell yeah.
Wait, was there? What was there? There was a Baby Mario?
I mean, my brother's he brings his what is it, Switch now? I don't even know. But he brings his Switch over every now and then. I'm either that or the Metal Mario. But the Baby Mario's pretty sick.
Okay. He must be, if he's small and swift and agile.
That's the idea. I can drift faster. You know,
right.
I'm nimble. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Very nimble. Andrew is Bowser. That cracks me up. Jesse, what about you?
Bowser on a motorcycle, specifically.
Totally. All right. Okay. So, I was a Toad fan. I don't know if it was because he was so cute, but we would always fight over Toad. It was like whenever we got in there was always like a jump to like who was going to get Toad first. So
yeah.
If you guys also want to put your name in the chat as well, we are also welcoming normal information too. But I would love to know your name, your what your company is, what your role is at your company, and which Mario Kart character you would be or chose or are. Maybe you're playing, lately.
Yeah, Kristen, I have some insights into you. I Googled what does choosing Toad in Mario Kart mean about my personality.
What does it mean?
It suggests that you are a positive, enthusiastic, and outgoing person who enjoys being a part of a group. So that's all good things. I thought it was
great
reference, or I thought it was going to go a lot of different ways, but absolutely not.
Wow, yeah, that really lifted my spirits today. Yeah. Leah was also Toad.
I was able to.
Wow, we've got two Toads on the line. Jeremy Redfern Goomba, is that a character? I trust you, Jeremy, but can we? It's a character, John? Can you verify that? Can you please do your fact checking?
Yep, I will verify it.
Okay, great. Donkey Kong, Sam. I was just going to do the sound that Donkey Kong makes. I'm actually really good at impersonations, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm also not going to do it because I would see myself doing that sound impersonation, and that would just be like weird. Okay, one more question before we get started. Kevin, good to see you, Kevin. He's an Atari 2400 guy. Okay, changing up the whole game here on us. I respect that. Matt. Oh, well, not Matt. It's Cynthia. And coming in under the name of Matt. So you snuck in here, Cynthia, as Matt, and you would be Princess. Okay. What was I going to say? Oh, do you guys, okay, I'm trying to think of like how to make this into a question, but I'm not going to do that. Rainbow Road. Can we talk about how stressful that course was? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
It's not stressful if you're good.
It's not my favorite.
It was like a psychedelic bad trip where you would fall off that road all the time. And yeah, but apparently
I think you just need to practice.
Probably. All right. Well, guys, thanks for joining. We are happy to have you here. Like I said, we're talking about lead Aggs, and I am going to introduce our guests today. They are both from Wilson Plumbing and Heating. Jesse, why don't you start us off? Tell us who you are and something about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Jesse Reyes. I'm in charge of marketing at Wilson. I've been here for about a year and a half. Prior to that, I was kind of a freelance marketer doing a lot of SEO, paid social, email marketing, affiliate marketing, that kind of thing, for 7 years, I think, prior to coming to Wilson. So I'm still kind of new to home service industries, though about a year and a half in, I feel like I'm starting to, at least in the context of Wilson, get pretty used to it. And from a marketing standpoint, I really enjoy it because it's very complicated, which might turn other people off, but I thoroughly enjoy it.
Jesse, are you do you enjoy puzzles and logic and things like that?
I hate puzzles, but I do like strategy.
Yeah.
When I would play video games, it'd be a lot of strategic stuff. So
yeah. Okay, cool. Well, glad to have you here, Jesse. And John, why don't you, we've had John on in the past, but John, why don't you tell us about yourself?
I am John Wilson. I'm the CEO here at Wilson. I'm a plumber from Akron. That's my claim to fame. And I run a show called Owned and Operated in my free time. So check it out.
Yeah, and tell us about what is that about? Why did you start that?
I think it's a lot of fun when you can just I have a better way to start this. There's nothing that white men love more than a microphone. So if you want to ask people much smarter than you questions that they would normally never answer, you put them on a podcast, and it works every freaking time. So you can bring on these people who are just way smarter than you and much further along in their business, and they will share stuff that they probably wouldn't have because you get to give them a microphone. So it's really awesome. So if you want to hear about how people are growing their business from 0 to 10 or north of 100 million and going multi-location and taking over wherever, those are a lot of the conversations I get to have twice a week. It's pretty fun.
Love it. That's a great pitch. Yeah, we'll be dropping in the chat and at the end, John's YouTube channel and where you can get a link to his podcast. And it's also a newsletter. You get a newsletter with lots of great stuff in it. So
yeah, it's awesome. We write to 45,000 contractors a week right now, which is just crazy.
That's awesome. Love to hear that.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, and then for those of you who are not aware, many of you are, some of you are Hatch customers, but for those of you who aren't aware, Hatch is an AI CSR platform for contact centers. So we have AI CSRs that text, email, and speak on the phone with your customers. This is a new feature that we are coming out with very soon, the speaking portion. Our AI CSRs aren't just kind of these one-off, siloed thing. They integrate with your lead sources in your CRM. They can interact with your other systems to push data in and out. And they work alongside you, right? We're not looking to replace people with AI. These are just kind of cheaper options than having to hire on more people. So you can continue scaling without having to hire on more people. And then I would say that the last thing is just the 3 kind of pillars of Hatch are increasing conversion, lowering your overhead, and then finding a way to do that in a scalable rinse and repeat manner. So that is what our platform allows you to do. And today's agenda, this is very elaborate. We are talking about lead aggregators, and then we're going to segue into some conversation about lead aggregators, and then we're going to switch on over and talk a little bit more about lead aggregators, and then we'll get into Q&A. It won't be in that order necessarily. You can ask questions during this entire time, and I encourage input. We want to hear it all. And as the title of this webinar shows, John was able to increase his set rate from 10 to 40. John and Jesse together were able to increase that rate from 10 to 40% using lead Aggs. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about just the overall theme of, how do you derive value out of lead aggregators? They can be tough sometimes. So we're gonna jump into that. As we do that, I would like to know in the chat, throw in the chat, those of you who are on there, are you currently using lead aggregators? So are you using them, or are you interested in them, or did you use them in the past and stopped using them? Curious to see there. All right, I'm going to take it off slides and just change it to our faces. So Jesse, John, essentially, well, actually, before we get into that, John, can you give a quick overview of like, just so people can understand who they're, like, how to relate to you? How big is your company? What is your setup like? Or do you have CSRs? Just a quick lay of the land there would be great.
Yeah. So we are a mid-size plumbing, HVAC, and electrical contractor. We're budgeted for about $31 million this year. We're based out of Cleveland, one location. So yeah, I think that was most of what you were looking for there. So that's our perspective. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So, John, when you and I talked, I don't know, a month or so ago, you were saying that you couldn't use lead Aggs before Hatch because your process was so clunky. So either John or Jesse, can you guys share with me did you try using lead aggregators, and you had what was your process like with leads from those?
Yeah, I could take that one. So prior to Hatch, really the only sort of lead generator or aggregator we used was Google LSA, which is most times a direct call, as most people know. But we also knew that obviously LSA has a message feature for message leads, and we knew that there were a lot of other sources that have message leads, like Angi was one that we always knew about, for example. And we never had a good way to really handle any kind of lead that wasn't a direct call to our call center. Call center would seem to do fairly well if they were taking a live call. But if we were paying for a message lead, usually it was getting lost somewhere. And prior to Hatch, we actually tried a couple different softwares to try to make this one sort of inbox where our whole call center could go. And really just trying to solve that. We weren't even thinking in terms of like any kind of automation or anything like that. So when we tried Hatch and kind of started hooking it up and testing it, it was a huge win for us because one, we got that sort of consolidated inbox, but on top of that, we also had the automations of the follow-up texts and emails and voicemail drops. And we've been able to use that and test different lead sources against it, and which I think we've been doing. I want to say we started in August is when we signed on to Hatch, or thereabout. And yeah, since then, I don't know, maybe we've tested 10. I don't know what the exact number is, but we'll put them in the Hatch and we kind of like run them through, and with the follow-up sequences and all of that, and then having call center call on the back of that. And yeah, the results have been really good.
Great. So for those of you, some of you are actually Hatch users. For those of you who may not be aware, what Jesse is referring to is our speed to lead campaign. It's one of our most popular campaign types in Hatch. So we integrate directly with your lead sources. And that way, when a lead comes in, Hatch picks up on that lead. So let's say they fill out a form on your website or on Angi, or even they send you a message through Google LSA. Hatch picks up on that, and then it sends out a message to that lead right away. And then it's a cadence, right? So it's not just like one message. It could be a message, it could be a text message, and then an email a few minutes later. And then the next day, if they don't respond, if there's no activity in your CRM, the campaign will continue reaching out using different wording in a natural way until you get somebody to respond. So Jesse, you're saying that you guys were first just trying to find a way to consolidate your lead sources into one place, not even like messaging them. You just wanted to see them all in one place, because I imagine it was tough, like monitoring different lead sources. Like I know like Google LSA is one dashboard and then Angie would be another. So was that like the main impetus there, is just getting them consolidated?
Yeah, because without that one central place, one thing you don't want your CSRs to do is have to hop around a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's distracting, makes them inefficient, and they also will just forget the more things you give them to remember. So we wanted to make it as easy for them.
Uh-oh. Is Jesse freezing for you guys too? Is he freezing for you, John?
Yeah.
Okay. Jesse is currently frozen, but while we wait for him to come back, I do want to take a look at the comments here because I want to look and see. Uh-oh. Let's take a look here. So
yeah, there.
We'll give it a second for Jesse to catch up, to get up to speed in real time here.
I tried to mute it. I was hoping that would do it.
I was. Oh, we lost him again. Okay, while we wait for him to come back on, I'm gonna quickly just look at the chat here. So, Jeremy says you do use them, fairly high booking rate. Glad to hear that, Jeremy. Julia is currently using them. Leah is using them, but we want to use them more. Sam, so this is really great because we've had webinars and people have come on and been like, we hate lead Aggs, and like we get that too. But I'm glad to see there's a positive turnout. Kevin, you just turned Angie Leads back on after not using for a year. Using them, but quality is poor. Some are good, some are not. Always looking for more. Ray Taggart, we used to use a lot of them. We only use a couple now. We have been moving away to direct marketing, mostly due to TCPA laws and difficulty of navigating consent. It's a good point, Ray. And then Ray also says that Hatch was a game changer for handling lead Aggs. Been using it for 3 to 4 years now. Love to hear that, Ray. Jesse, you were having some internet issues, but I think I think we have you back now, so that's great. Okay, so we talked about the process and kind of the consolidation. Before we move on, John, do you have anything you want to add on there or comment on? You're good.
Jesse did a great job.
Great, Jesse. All right, so talk to me about some of these results. So essentially, you had like a 10% booking rate and it increased to 40. Can you guys talk about that?
Yeah. Which, if we're talking specifically message leads, I don't even know if our booking rate was 10%. That might be generous. Because a few times we turned it on, they just kind of floated in the ether.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Hatch, it varies by lead source.
Yeah.
But I think as of last month, I don't have the numbers for this month, but I think one of the more popular ones that John has been talking about on his podcast that kind of throws people off is Angi. Our booking rate last month was like 38% on their leads. And that's purely message leads coming in through Hatch. Without Hatch, I don't think that would happen. Just because Hatch is guaranteed to touch every lead that comes in. In addition to that, we still try to follow up with an outbound call, which I think is also important. But having that automatic SMS email follow-up, I think is critical if you want to see higher booking rates.
Yep.
And I've also talked to a lot of I've talked to every lead vendor that we've onboarded and been through the onboarding process more times than I would like. But in general, if they're talking messaging leads, a lot of the KPIs that they give me is like, oh, if you're doing 20% or 25% booking rate, you're doing very good. That's kind of the standard. So when we hit 37 on Angi, it was kind of surprising because the Angi gets a bad rap. And John and I both were not huge fans of Angi prior to this. So that was kind of an interesting find. I don't know that we have a messaging lead source that's below 30%. I think we might have one that's 20, but it's high if we're using 20 or 25% as that metric.
Yeah, that's great. Speaking of, there are some questions on here that I'll get to, but speaking of the outbound call, you make a good point. So Hatch is used for the text and email portion, and then eventually, when we have our AI, the AI can make the calls as well. But right now, yes, people are using it in a manual capacity. Are you guys now using the new feature where you can add a call step to campaigns and make the call in Hatch, or are you still using a separate phone system?
Yeah, we're not currently using the feature. We tried it out. I guess the thing that we weren't crazy about is that the recording can't yet be, or the call can't be recorded yet in Hatch, which we
Yeah.
want for customer service purposes, legal purposes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So currently, the way we do it is we'll just pretty much every lead source sends you some kind of notification, usually through email or text, when a lead comes in. And so what we do is we just have a simple Zapier integration that goes into our Slack channel and says, hey, a lead came in, go check it out. So the first place they'll check will be Hatch to see if the person responded to the message. But then also those notifications usually push the customer information. So that'll pop up in the Slack channel that the CSRs use, and they can call it, and they usually mark it. And then in Hatch, I believe they also use the sales board feature, and they'll have the different categories, which let me check before I say what they are. Yeah, I think it's like 1 day, 2 to 5 days, 1 week, and then 2 to 4 weeks. And their frequency of calling and following up with the customer will be like more intense the closer to the lead time, but then the further out you get, the less intense it gets. And they're working alongside Hatch's automation, which is we kind of almost follow the template you guys have for lead gen verbatim. I think we added a couple messages within the 30-day period as kind of like a Hail Mary.
Yep.
So like Hatch, if I remember right, the first 5 days it sends a combination of SMS and email.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. Let me pull that up because I actually have that. So for those of you who are on the call who aren't using Hatch, give me 1 second. Let me pull that up.
I think it was a blog post that we just copied it right off.
Yeah, and it's in the platform also as part of our template, but I'm just gonna pull it up from I have it here, and then we can just look at it together. It is. It's crazy how less clearly you can think when you're on a webinar. Like I access this doc like every day, and like I'm looking at a spreadsheet and I'm like, well, how do I read? I like forgot how to read. So just bear with me for like 10.
Me even off of webinars. That's just me at any given moment.
Okay. Here we go. Got it. Got the templates. So while I pull that up, Kevin has a question. He said, when talking about Hatch and Angi, are you saying that it is the speed to lead that made the difference?
Yeah, I think speed to lead, and then so two things kind of make the difference. I would say the speed to lead automation in Hatch, because we guarantee that every lead gets touched, independent of any one CSR, which I think is pretty important. But then in addition to that, we have our CSRs outbound as soon as they see the lead come in as well. So those two things together, I think, are the magic combination.
Yeah, and I would also jump in and say that, as you'll see when I share my screen, the multi, and Kevin, I know you're using speed to lead campaigns in Hatch too, but the multi outreach, right? So people aren't, the speed to lead is important because you're getting to them right away, but they're not necessarily going to get back to you right away. And then, so you text them and then they don't answer, but like the next day you text and email them. Like sometimes it's not until like the 5th attempt that they respond. Do you guys find that as well?
Yeah, we see, I mean, it kind of runs the gamut. You'll have the people that respond right away with the text. You'll have people that, even though they submitted the form lead, they want to go on the phone. and usually the majority of bookings are going to be within like those first 3 days.
Yeah.
But we still see leads book within 5. And I also mentioned that we kind of added to the template. So I think
Right.
2 weeks after the lead comes in, we send a couple messages, and then like a week after that, you know, and it's not a ton, but like every once in a while you'll see someone book on those even.
Yep. It's not letting me share my screen because it's saying I have to adjust my preferences, but I'm going to drop this in the chat. So this is this is our Hatch campaign templates. I mean, you don't have to be a Hatch user to access these templates. And Kevin wants to know if he wants to know if you have a sample of the text that goes to Angie leads specifically. I imagine you were probably just sticking with the template that we have and maybe tweaking it a little bit. So Kevin, to answer your question and maybe other people on the call, I just dropped this into the chat. If you go to that blog post, I really wish I could just share my screen, but the first text basically says like, hey, first name, it's, you know, so-and-so with the company. I got your information from the form you submitted. Text me back with what you're looking for. Reply end to stop texts, right? Because you have to have that opt-out message in. What you guys will notice is that it's like you may, if you want to customize it and be like, I got your information from Angie or whatever, like you can do that, but it's, you know, the main idea is just to get a response. And then I think, Kevin, for you guys, you sometimes gear your campaigns for saying like, hey, thanks for, I got your information from the form you submitted. We will be calling you shortly. So you can also take that route too. I know that's a helpful way to go, Kevin, because then that lead is essentially like warmed up for when somebody does call them. The email goes out, our template, the email I think goes out about 15 minutes later. Email says pretty much the same thing. Day 2, hey, first name, I haven't heard back since you submitted your form. Text me back with the details. Day 2, there's no email. Day 3, there is an email and a text. And it says, you know, the email is, you know, subject line, it's reminder about your request. I haven't heard back from you regarding the request you submitted. Can you email me back the details of what you want to do? Text says the same thing. I haven't heard back since you submitted your form. Text me back with the details. Day 3, just a single text. Are you looking to get work done? Text me back with details. I'd love to help. Day 4, a text following up again on the form you submitted. Are you still interested? Would love to help. Day 5, text. Reaching out one last time. Would you prefer a phone call? So obviously, if you're only doing text and email, that's like a pretty good cadence to use. But, you know, you guys might tweak it to say, you know, we're going to be calling you, or maybe you already called them. So you change up that last message. And then Jesse, you're saying you guys probably added something in, you know, later on down the line to just as a Hail Mary to try them.
Yep. And I don't know if it's helpful or not, but the Hail Mary thing is like, hey, I hope that project went good. Just wanted to let you know for this next few days, we're dropping our dispatch fee or something. I think it's something along those lines. So it's not even referencing the project that because we're kind of assuming 2 weeks later, like they probably took care of it.
Yep.
But maybe we can still kind of squeeze something out of it.
Yeah, that's a good call. Because I was going to ask you guys, are you doing do you have like a slippage? So there's like speed to lead, and then there's like estimate follow-up. Do you have a campaign for leads that just never booked? Or is it kind of that Hail Mary that you're doing?
It would be the Hail Mary. So each lead source essentially has that in it, where we'll be within that 30-day period, we'll be hitting them.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, I think Angie, the information they give you actually expires after a certain amount of time, which I think is 30 days.
Yep.
And I can't remember off the top of my head if they're the only ones to do that, but then you also have the TCPA laws and that kind of thing. So we're a little wary of outbounding to them outside of that 30-day period.
Yep.
Because we don't want to push the limits.
Yep, that makes sense. And that does remind me to share with you guys that if you're using Hatch AI and you have a bot attached to your campaign, you can program that bot to collect their true information. So Jesse's referring to masked leads, and Angie does this, Yelp does this. A lot of lead aggregators are moving toward this model. where the person fills out the form and then the information you're getting about them is not their real number. And the number that they're getting from you is not even your real number. It's masked. So you can build in with your CSRs in a manual way. You can have them when that person responds, you can have them, set the appointment and then say like, can we get your information to contact you later for future things. You can also do that with the bot. And then also for clarification, Jesse is talking about how that is a TCPA thing. And then so we do have campaigns in Hatch where you can reach back out to leads that never booked with you and say, hey, like we never set up an appointment, or are you still interested? So that's one way to do it. You can separate that into its own campaign. Or you can keep it in a speed to lead campaign so that you're reaching out to them within that 30-day window, kind of saying, one last thing. And Jesse, like you're saying, you guys kind of sweeten the pot a little bit with an offer.
Yep.
Great. Ray is asking, how does that affect TCPA laws? We have been reluctant to use that. The question disappeared, but it's a good question, Ray. There's a lot of right now the TCPA. I mean, if you guys remember, in January it was like TCPA like apocalypse, right? It was going to be like all leads, like you can't message leads that haven't given you one-to-one consent, and that law never passed. That enactment never passed. We technically have a year. We don't know if it's actually going to go into effect, but the truth, there's still some thought about how, once you have a lead, how much time do you have to contact them? They've given you consent. How long does that consent last? So that consent law is not really in place, but the fact still remains that you want to be conscious. These are people. They're, you get texts and emails and solicitations all day as well. So you want to be mindful of that. Ray rephrased his question. How does the Yelp system comply with TCPA laws? So that is the masked lead. So I don't necessarily know if it's TCPA specific, but there are privacy laws. And that masked communication is a compliance and a privacy thing. I'll drop another resource in the chat. This is our Yelp integration page. It is our Yelp. Let me find it for you guys. It's called temporary, working with temporary, here we go. Working with leads with temporary information in Hatch. So I'm going to drop this it's a little bit technical, but it may help you to understand what that means. Okay, I'm gonna actually address a few more of these questions here. Rodney wants to know, Jesse, do you have a link in your text to have a customer book appointments?
No, we do not. And
Okay.
that was actually something we talked to our Hatch onboarding person with.
Mm-hmm.
They recommended against it just for deliverability. You can send a link. Like we have some instances where this isn't necessarily for lead gen, but for specific job types, we'll send like an informational video, like, hey, here's what to expect on your appointment. But at that point, they're more than just a contact. They have a booked job. We're not so much worried about deliverability in that case.
Yeah, and by deliverability, Jesse's kind of referring to like, this is a different form of compliance, but there are a lot of spam filters and flags out there, and so there are certain things that carriers can be aware of. So putting a link we do have plenty of customers that do put a link in there, but it's not like we promote that, because you don't know if there's a link in your text message, it may not get delivered, it may get flagged, or a customer might, if they see a link right away, it might have that spammy look to it. And then Jesse, it sounds like you guys have another campaign in Hatch Sounds like you do like a what's the word? Like a prep. Is it the enablement
Yes, sales
campaign?
enablement, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually something we just launched last week. It's for we do a home water quality analysis.
Okay.
And we were finding that cancellation rate on those job types was very high. And part of the reason, and we also found that when the salesperson was getting to the house, there wasn't really a clear expectation on who we were or what we were going to do. So the idea came, well, let's put a quick, almost like tutorial video that answers all those questions. So we just set it up in Hatch to be booked by the job type. And every time that job type is booked, it's like, hey, just, before your appointment, here's a few things to remember. Here's a quick video so you know what to expect.
Yeah, that's great. I know one of our other customers, Reliable Power, they do something similar. First of all, it's great for the customer experience because it's like, hey, your appointment has been booked. It's not just like, hey, your appointment's coming up in a day. That confirmation is good. And then they use it similarly, and they also do some price conditioning there for them. Like they, drop in some information so that, that way if they get that email and it says, here is our price range, and they're like, forget it, then that's one less appointment that they went out to and wasted their time on with somebody who wasn't going to be willing to pay that price. So similar concept. Cool. John, I know you're just hanging out. You're cool just continuing to hang out,
I'm
right?
having a great time.
All right,
Jesse's
cool.
he's doing great. Well, Jesse interfaces with Hatch. I know you guys actually talk a lot about how it's like a contact center tool, which we see it that way too, but it's really been like a marketing driver for us, and that's where we have it sit, is inside marketing. So Jesse's doing great.
Yeah. It is interesting because it helps with sales and revenue, but it really is like very good at that marketing aspect because the automation of that initial outreach is a very marketing driven kind of function. And I know, I've talked with Kevin. Kevin's been on webinars before. We did a success story with him. It's a similar thing. It's very much a marketing function within his business. So, okay. So yeah, Kevin, I shared that link, but if you need any additional help with like messaging to use for your Angi leads, feel free to reach out and we can help you out with that. Let's see. Somebody asked a question about your set rate. Where was it? Does your set rate include appointments set through text with no call?
Yes. So we combine that. Sometimes people will just book exclusively in Hatch with SMS, sometimes with email even. And then other times we get them on the phone. Just it's kind of up to the customer at that point.
Yep. Are you guys doing missed call campaigns through Service Titan?
We used to. I don't remember actually. Because I know Hatch has that ability.
We don't really have missed calls anymore. I think it's part of the answer. We used to do it because we used to have a lot of missed calls.
That's right.
But now we don't really miss them.
Right.
And that is that because you're also using like an AI phone service?
Yeah. We have Avoca on inbounds, and that helps support overflow nights, weekends, and I think it flips over at 7 seconds. And then we also, like, our call center manager has been very effective at like increasing pickups.
Got it. Let's talk a little bit about like the operational side. So Jesse, do you guys have different people managing different, like, do you have one person that's managing the speed to lead board in Hatch?
So our speed to lead board kind of dumps directly into our call center. So all of our CSRs have access to it. And John can kind of speak more to this, but I believe like their pay is like commission based on what they book. So it's kind of like the lead comes in, whoever gets it gets it. So those two things together means usually they're super motivated and they jump on those leads. And that was, I don't remember when we made that change, but I saw the difference in the speed to lead because prior to that, there were maybe 1 or 2 people in the workspace, and they would check it throughout the day, but not constantly. Where now it's like, as soon as that lead comes in, if it pops up in Hatch, there's somebody on it. You can pretty much guarantee.
Yep, that's great. Yeah, so this is an important distinction to make is Hatch sends out that message instantaneously, right? So you don't have to be monitoring the lead platform itself. Hatch will send out that message. But when a customer responds, it's really key to make sure that you are there for when they respond, because once they respond, that's the window. And if you miss it, then you miss it. So really key there. And that's another plug I will make for Hatch AI, because your AI CSRs can jump in and handle those leads that come in or that respond. So Leah just wants to clarify. So there are multiple CSRs that have access to the same Hatch workspace that your leads come into, correct?
Yeah. Yes. Every CSR actually has access to that workspace.
Okay. And Tyler wants to know how many people are in your call center.
I don't actually know the answer to that. More than
I
10?
think it's only like 12 or 13 now. At our peak, like staffing, we've grown. We just got a lot more efficient. I think it was like 18 or 19, but we've been able to lean down to 13, 14.
Cool. Let's see what else. There are some more questions in here. This is a question for Hatch. Justin wants to know, does the Hatch onboarding include building out any specific campaigns? Also with AccuLinks, how well has the direct integration been working thus far? Justin, yeah, your onboarding. So we kind of have a set of best practice, like a core setup. Like you've got your speed to lead, you've got your estimate follow-up, you've got some of your nurture campaigns. So we will work with you to build those out. And we've got templates that you can use. And like Jesse is saying, you can use the templates, you can adjust them to your liking. And then as you get more familiar with the platform, you can set up your own campaigns. It's designed that way. And, you know, we can talk about that too, because I know you guys have a ton of campaigns and workspaces in the Wilson account. But you also can use your account manager you can just say, hey, I want to build a campaign for X, Y, and Z. Can you help me with that? And then your other question, the AccuLinks integration. So I know Kevin can speak to this. AccuLinks is a CRM, and that is a two-way sync. So it's the same thing as with Service Titan, i360. It's a two-way sync. So whatever conversation happens in Hatch, that is visible in your CRM. It depends on the CRM, but it'll go into like the notes section or a specific part of your CRM. And then he also wants to know if the Hatch platform is something that can be monitored separately by the CSR or rehash coordinator. Or does the info flow back into AccuLinks? So again, the information does flow back into AccuLinks, but the key, Justin, with the Hatch platform is you basically see all those, like you can see all of your conversations in one place. So you can get a view of like, there's 3 columns that are, you can status them, whatever status you want. So it's designed for you to be able to manage and have those conversations all in that one place. So AccuLinks would still be your source of truth. But the Hatch is more just like where you can have like feet on the ground interacting with customers. Would you say that that's kind of how you guys are using it, Jesse, between Service Titan and Hatch?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see, what else? What other questions do you guys have? I'd love to just welcome in some more input on lead aggregators. I guess like as far as the set rate is concerned, so are you guys are you still bringing on more lead sources, or do you feel like you've kind of maxed out, or where are you at with that?
I don't know that we'll ever max out. Always trying to maximize, get as many leads as we can for as little money as possible. But currently, I want to say we probably use 6 or 7. But there's certain ones where the volume's very high. And then there's a lot of them where, maybe the volume's low, but it's a specific type of job or a specific trade. And we kind of augment the the high volume ones.
Yeah.
When we first had Hatch, I was probably taking on 3 or 4 new ones a month to just test them.
Yep.
We test them for about 90 days ish. Now it's, we're a lot more stable. We feel like we have a good collection that works good for us and our business, but we'll still, every couple months try a new one.
Yeah, that's great. Jeremy wants to know, what is the general return on ad spend on your lead ags? Is it like 4-to-1, 6-to-1? You have an idea there?
Yeah, actually, it varies by platform, and also it can vary with seasonality.
Yeah.
I think so. What we shoot for is 7. 7 is very good. 6 is good. 5 is like, okay, it's not horrible, but we're not crazy about it. Anything above 7 is very good. And to give some context, last month, I think on Angi, we did 7.8, which was pretty high. And to compare that with Google, I think last month LSA was 7.7. So Angi actually slightly beat LSA's that month. So we try to keep it in within like 5 plus. And I would probably only keep a lead source that has a 5 ROI if it was a very specific job type or trade that we were struggling with in terms of getting enough volume to keep our guys busy. But if that wasn't the case, if something stayed at a 5, I would probably eventually just cut it off because I'm much happier with it, at least a 6.
Yeah. Cool. Kelly wants to know, what does your dashboard look like? What information does Hatch dashboard give you for reporting? Find duplicates, booking rates, what lead ags that are performing better than the others? I can help answer this, but Jesse, I'd love to hear your answer for this.
Mm-hmm. So the Hatch does have an in-suite dashboard. We tend to use it more to keep track of the people in Hatch. What are their response rates? Are they, staying on top of things? For the actual calculating things like ROI and booking rate, we cross-reference. So we have the actual lead source, which they usually give you every month a report of, what they brought in for you, and we compare that to Hatch and Service Titan. And so we actually have some VAs that'll go in and manually attribute if we need to, but ideally it happens automatically. And that's kind of where we pull those metrics together from those 3 places.
Cool. Yeah, so Hatch does have reporting. It can be a little bit difficult to read. It's got a lot of information in there. But you can generally get an idea, Kelly, of response rates by lead source. So when we have you set up your Hatch account, we separate out your campaigns by lead source, so that way you can find better attribution that way. And then to Jesse's point, there's a user tab, and that is really helpful with accountability. You can see by user, how many messages they've sent out, how many emails they've sent out, and then you can also see their average first response time. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, the Hatch will send out the message right away. Their response time is how long it takes them to engage once a customer has responded to that automated message. What else do we have here? Do the appointments set through text and email go well? Are there more no-shows and things like that? How do you get all the decision makers there?
So we don't actually even track the, I guess, booking rate by text or email. That's something we would have to go into Hatch and kind of do manually. We would track a booking rate or a cancellation rate based on lead source. And if we see that lead source has an exceptionally high cancel rate or exceptionally high booking rate on the positive side, then we would that's where I would dive in, or someone from my team would dive in and see if there was an issue with something there. As far as getting all the decision makers there, usually in our job types, a lot of times we're dealing with an emergency or a repair that they are in the market for. They need it today or within a couple of days. We are trying to kind of branch out a little bit and get some of the more value-driven sales with water quality and things like home generators and that kind of thing. And for that, we do use Hatch for that, but it's also touched a lot by a separate sales team, which John would know more about than me if we wanted to talk about that.
Any comments, John?
No, I mean, that pretty much sums it up. Like our industry isn't as focused on one-leggers. Like if we were in bathroom models or exteriors or something like that, I think that's a little bit more prevalent. But a lot of our stuff is, no heat, no hot water.
Yeah,
so it's a little bit more emergency driven.
Yeah, and I'll add in here because we're so focused on AI. I know you guys aren't using AI yet, but one of the things that we do, Daniel, is with the AI CSRs. So those get attached to your campaign. So the Hatch automated speed to lead message goes out, the customer responds. Now your AI CSR jumps in, and what you can do is create a set of instructions for that AI CSR. What information do you want it to collect? And that gets built in. So we actually have templates, and that is one of the key things. So it's like, can I verify your name and your address? All the information that it already gave, you can confirm that, and then it can ask, like, are all the decision makers going to be present? Are you okay with our $75? Assessment fee? You can build in those questions. So that's one option. Obviously, you can have your AI do it, but also from a human standpoint, you can build that into your CSR process. So in the appointment setting process, make sure you're getting that information and make that a standard part of training your CSRs. Let's see. There are some more questions in here. Actually, I think we may have answered the questions so far.
Nailed it.
We're all caught up. What else do you guys want to know? We have 8 minutes left. We can end early, or we can talk Mario Kart.
Well, I'd love to know, just from audience, like best practices on lead aggregators. It's a big focus of ours to get better and better. We've improved, but we'd like to continue improving. I know, we've made really big strides in our set rate. We're now working on our demo rate, and that's just like, how do we get out to the home? And that's the sales enablement text, basically. But yeah, I think we're running 7 lead ags right now. We're trying to find ways to run more, and I'm just very curious who else is winning with lead aggregators.
Yeah, put that in the chat. Curious to know, like, what you guys, some of you have said that you've had good success. So would love to hear some best practices there that you're implementing, whether that's with the leads or even with vetting the lead ag. And I also almost forgot to mention to you guys this poll that you may have seen pop up on your screen. If you are a Hatch customer and you want to do some optimizations in your account, you can choose option A. This is just, you want you basically want your account manager to reach out to you. If you're not a Hatch customer and you are interested in learning more and you want to get a demo, you want to see what the platform looks like, the interface, also choose option A. Option B is if you are interested in owned and operated pro. And John, I'm going to give you a second to share what that is.
Yeah, so we run a podcast, Owned and Operated, and it's been a lot of fun. Like we talked about, I get to learn from a bunch of people. And Owned and Operated Pro is basically a peer group to sort of create more of that. So if you're someone that's looking for peers in the industry, if you don't have a group that you're a part of, Owned and Operated Pro is going to be a peer group for you, and it should be pretty cool. So you can find out more information at ownedandoperated.com. And then we have inside it, there's a bunch of awesome pro partners that have given special pricing or special partnerships to owned and operated pro members. And you can start to see that on there.
I'm going to drop that link in the chat. This is ownedandoperated.com. So there you can join OYO Pro. You can subscribe to John's newsletter. It's great, has a lot of great insights in it. And then there's also links, to the podcast. You can also see the episodes on YouTube. So definitely check that out.
And if you have a great story to tell and you're smarter than me, which you probably are, like, throw in your contact information so I can interview you on the pod and get all your secrets.
You can throw your contact information in the chat, or you can simply raise your hand for option B and they'll reach out to you.
Come share your story with thousands of people, including me.
Story.
It's going to be great.
Okay, so John, in response to your comment here about getting some best practices, so Daniel said calling immediately is number one.
Yeah.
So have to agree with that. Kevin says he's not winning, but he's hoping Hatch will be a game changer. So Kevin, I know that when we last talked, you weren't using lead Aggs. So interesting to see that you're turning those back on, and definitely work with us to make sure that you're getting success there. Daniel reinforced calling as close to 0 seconds as possible. Definitely, Daniel. Ray has some good stuff in here. Differentiate yourself from the noise. Hatch cadence is great, but once we changed up the actual messages, we got a better response, especially for leads that go to many other sources. Our Angi and Modernize leads first message would start, "I know your phone just started blowing up right now." That's really interesting, Ray. I love to hear that. I was going to ask you, how have you edited your cadence? Because obviously that's something that helps us too, to make sure we're giving people, unless you don't want to share your secret sauce, we respect that too. But differentiating yourself from the noise, I think that's huge. And Ray, like, if you really are using that verbiage, like, "I know your phone just started blowing up," that is a great way to differentiate yourself from the noise.
Yeah.
It's just speaking conversationally. Love that.
Yeah. What we learned too, we had Jesse Smith from Modernize on the podcast yesterday. And it was really interesting. What I did not know about lead aggregators is that there's a resale market for leads. So if they have, their job is to get as many leads as possible across as wide of an area as possible, which means there are areas that they don't have a buyer for those leads, whether it's by zip code or DMA or whatever. So we pulled up a couple examples, and they currently, and this is on the show, if you listen to it, I think it comes out next week, but for 80% of their leads, which is 40 million leads a year, because they get 50 million total, for 80% of their leads, they have a buyer, but for 20% they don't. So what they end up doing is they resell it to other lead aggregators. So I don't really know how to ask, your lead partner, like, "Hey, how old is this lead?" But that was something that was really interesting to me, because I know sometimes we get this lead and the customer's like, "Hey, like, I did that like weeks ago," and we're always, "What are you talking about? We just got this like 20 minutes ago. Like, we're super on top of this." And it's because they did, and somebody resold it. So we're trying to figure, that was yesterday. So we're trying to figure out how to incorporate that into our communication strategy of, "Hey, this is a 2-week-old lead it's already like been resold. How do we now stand out?"
That's interesting.
Yeah, I had no idea. It was fascinating. So 20% of their leads. And I guess the biggest buyer is Angi.
Wow.
Yep.
Matt Askew, which I think, if we go back, I think that was Princess from Matt. Oh no, Matt Askew's different. Sorry. There was somebody here that was Matt is the Toad from Blanton Pummeling. Okay, so Matt, you said you're not using Hatch, but you have a dedicated team to handle leads 8 to 9 p.m., 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. They respond immediately to all leads via SMS, phone, and email. And he, just for the group's sake, he said, we get leads from Google LSA, Yelp, Angi, and Thumbtack. And he asked, are we missing any big ones? And Jesse, you threw a few more in the mix. And that includes HomeU, HomeBuddy, Porch, and EverConnect are all worth looking at for additional lead sources. I would have to agree with that. Another thing you can do, Matt, is on our website, there is a, I'm going to drop the link in here for you. It is our partners and integrations page. We integrate with just about every lead source there is. And you can go on there and you can just click on lead sources is actually at the top, and there's a bunch on there. So if you see any that you're not using, feel free to check out those. So yeah, people are agreeing, John, that those leads really get passed around, getting the same lead from multiple aggregators many times. And I know Kelly Polanski, she's been kind of, you've mentioned this twice. I will also say that Active Prospect is a tool that you can use. It's mainly, it's great for compliance, but they also have like a deduplicating. I'm sure there are other services out there too, but it's worth looking into because they can send back for you leads that are duplicates. And looks like Kevin is your first taker, John. He's got Eddie.
I already sent it to my Kristen. Be like, hey, email this dude. We gotta talk to him on the pod.
That's great.
We're gonna ask him smart boy questions. It's gonna be sweet. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, and for those of you who didn't attend the webinar with Kevin, I would strongly recommend you do that. I'll drop that in once more before we hop off. Kevin is a really good resource for learning about brand awareness. Let me find this for you guys. So here's another best practice. Work on your brand. Having a story to tell. If your business was a person, like how do you want people to describe that person? Like when they come to the party, like who are they? Are they the party planner? Are they like the life of the party? Like what is the voice and personality of your brand, and how like have a cohesive story around that and present that brand and have as many touches as you can, even if it's like in a grocery store or a grocery store divider. Or I know Kevin has Eddie, their owner, on a bus traveling around the city. Just his whole face is on he physically is not on the bus. He may be riding the bus. I don't know. But he is, wrapped on the bus. And yes, he says our brand is our brand is the owner. So yes, this is a huge part of increasing conversion on your any marketing activity you do, whether that's ads or lead aggregators or website forms. The more times people know about you and hear about you, the more likely they are to convert when they see that. And Kevin is confirming that they have 12 buses. So there are 12 Eddies riding around on 12 buses.
I'm kind of jealous. I want to get on buses.
Yeah.
We're going to put you on a bus, John.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
So so I put that recap in the chat as well. And this, we'll do the same thing with this webinar is we do a written recap of it. And there's also a link to the recording in there so you can get it. So you'll get the recording within the next, 20 or so minutes. And then we'll send out a recap probably starting next week. Because we were doing weekly webinars, we were sending out a lot of emails, and I know that people just don't like a lot of emails. So we're moving down to just 2 emails a week. So we'll do like the recap of the prior webinar, an invitation to the upcoming webinar, and then any hatch updates and resources that will be helpful for you guys. So, Kevin has dropped in a picture of the bus, so make sure you catch that as well. Cool.
Kevin, I don't hate this at all.
Yeah. Can you see yourself on there, John?
You can see Jesse on there.
I don't know about that one.
What about your dog?
Are you just in Chicago? Or no, you're in Connecticut. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Jesse and John, both of you, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you everybody who participated. Your comments, your questions, this just helps everybody. So keep an eye out for the recap, and I will see you guys on the next webinar. Thanks
Cool.
again.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.